Hey Sainers, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Welcome to a impromptu. I think it's the first time I've ever done a trade talk live. So thank you all for tuning in last minute on a Friday. Not great circumstances, to be honest. I just posted a video about Tom de Koning and everything regarding that. And then, of course, the second I hit publish on that, this news breaks. And it's disappointing news, to say the least, but we'll talk about it. We'll get your thoughts as well. Put it in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling about this. But just to get into it, if you don't already know, Rowan Marshall has requested a trade to Geelong. There was a lot of talk about it, a lot of links to Geelong over the last month, swirling around in regards to getting Tom de Koning and whether he would want to play forward, whether he would be happy to split the ruck duties with Tom. Obviously, Tom's salary as well, if that came into it. There's a lot of questions, so we'll hopefully cover as much of it as we can in this live stream. But put all your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is an adequate sort of trade if it was to go down? I'm very curious to hear everyone's thoughts. I know Geelong people are offering a first and a second round pick. I think personally, I don't think we're in this for picks. I think we want a player and a pick potentially, but definitely want a player. I couldn't imagine that St Kilda would be wanting to do this just to get a first rounder and maybe a future second or something. I just can't see that happening. But just to quickly give you an update, this is, I think it was Tom Morris who broke the news. This is off X, so I'll just quickly play this clip so you can get full up to date on it, and then we'll talk about it.
Christian Petrarca has settled on the Suns. Chief footy reporter Tom Morris broke the story. Tom, now the fun really begins.
Believes he can play in a flat. There's a bit of talk in Marshall, the St Kilda right now. Rowan Marshall, the St Kilda ruckman, who has 2 years remaining on his deal. He has formally requested today a trade to Geelong. Now, this has been a long time coming. Tom de Koning has come into the Saints, and as a result, Rowan Marshall feels like his best chance of playing senior football consistently is at the Cats. So that will take place over the next 2 weeks or so. The Saints obviously hold the whip hand there. And speaking of the Saints, I can't quite believe this has happened either. Jack Silvani has officially joined today as a free agent. In return, Carlton got pick 19 as free agency compensation. I'll be back later on with a chat with Josh Dacos and more Saints news around their captain, Jack Steele. It's certainly all happening in the AFL trade space, Clint.
There you go. So that's the full sort of news at the moment. If you did watch the grand final and you saw the ruck situation with Geelong and what happened and how it played out in the game, you would have seen that Reece Stanley was subbed off. They preferred to have Jeremy Cameron with a broken arm, essentially, over Reece Stanley. And that was the moment in the game where Brisbane took him to the cleaners. Fort and McInerney went absolutely berserk in the middle of the ground, and that won them the game. So you can see how I personally think that second half of the grand final made Rowan Marshall even more valuable to Geelong, which to me, on the flip side, makes him more difficult to get, right? Because we're not here to play around. If you watch what Ross has said over the last couple of months, in particular, just before the NAS news and everything there, and he talked about contracted players and holding them to a contract, and we're not here to mess around. I think this is the ultimate situation where I think that's going to be at the forefront. I think that's going to be on show. I know Geelong, notably over the journey, tend to get players just because they can, and they get them for unders generally, because obviously they're a very successful organization, and players do just want to go there for the lifestyle. Rowan Marshall's very much that type of player that would love that lifestyle down there. But I'm a little disappointed, but I think I wouldn't be worried. I think if it comes down to it and we don't get the deal that we want, I don't think he's going anywhere. I personally don't think that unless they come to the party and St Kilda walk away almost with a better deal than what Geelong are going to get in Rowan Marshall, I just don't see it happening, to be honest. I don't think we're in this for picks. I think we want a player, and it might be a pretty good player at that. It's probably a player that might have played on grand final day. I don't know. There could be players like that we would be looking at. But just because he's nominated and he's requested, I personally don't think that means it gets done. I think this could be an example of St Kilda holding firm and keeping a player if we don't get what we want. We hold all the power. It's the opposite of Naz. It's the opposite of Windy, where we were stressing because they could really just walk and get more money anywhere else. I couldn't imagine that Marshall would be getting more money at Geelong. I think he had a very front-ended last couple of years. I haven't been crying. Coca, we just got 2 players today, mate. Why would I be crying? But I think at the end of it, I think we could still hold on to him at the end of it. I think all the pressure's on Geelong to meet St Kilda's needs. That's very true. That's very true. They're very dangerous in that area. We know that they can do that. Enough about me. Let's get through some of the comments as well. There's over 500 tuning in, so thank you very much. STK in a second rounder. Look, I would love STK. I think I've said it on record on the channel that if it came down to it and we could get a player, I would love Sam De Koning to partner with his brother, and that's a fullback position right there. That's a position that I still don't think we've completely locked down. We've got a lot of medium-sized talls, and I don't think Cal Wilkie long-term should be a fullback. So if there's the ability to shore up that position, and with a player that's got many years to go in his career, very young, I think he's only 24, and to play with his brother, I think that would be a good story. But we would want fair compensation, 100%. Like, St Kilda have got all the power here, so until we start hearing players, in the rumor mill on what Geelong would be willing to offer, I'm not sure. But I'm curious if there are Geelong fans in the chat. Honestly, put a player. Don't give me picks. Put a player in the comments, and let's see if that could work. What player would you be willing to lose from grand final day, perhaps, that would mean you would get Rowan Marshall? Potentially, I don't know. The ins and outs, we don't really know. The timing of it, a little bit disappointing, but it had to be done really before the trade period kicked off on Monday, so I could see why the timing happened right now. But literally like less than an hour after TDK, you couldn't script that stuff. It seems like Tom Morris maybe had that news for a fair while, and he thought this was the prime time to do it. Almost overshadow the big news of Tom De Koning and Jack Silvani, and put that at the last minute on a Friday night. So pretty clever on his part, I suppose, doing his job. But it just means, we're talking about it right now. This is why we're talking about it. I'd be all in on Dempsey. Yeah, Dempsey's an absolute gun, 100%. STK, just a straight swap, you reckon, Richard? Straight swap. Okay. Kerno? I don't know if that would... Shannon Neal's... I rate Shannon Neal. I think he's a very, very good forward, but I cannot imagine they would be losing him. Sam De Koning again, says Peter. We can now, absolutely. Maybe that's... But again, these Geelong players would need to want to go to St Kilda. It's not as if Geelong can just force them out to get Row in. They need to want to come to St Kilda, and that's a fair battle there. I mean, right now it's a good time, I think, to come to St Kilda, but if you're just leaving a team that's just played off in a grand final, and maybe you played on grand final day, or you think you're part of the future, it's going to be tricky to change that mentality. Bradman says, you've been around long enough to know that if a trade request is done, then the trade is probably already mostly done in principle, especially after Ross's comments. RM's manager wouldn't be that silly. I don't know. I'm trying to think of examples. I mean, Tim Kelly, it took a year, I think, for him to go. Josh Dunkley didn't leave. Was it the Bombers that wanted him, and it didn't get down because the Bombers didn't suffice the Dogs or something like that? Like, there have been deals where they haven't gotten done that year, but maybe eventually. But I would imagine Rowan Marshall's worth now is much more than what it might be in 12 months. But again, if he did play at St Kilda next season and hypothetically partnered up with TDK and it went really well, and say Rowan Marshall kicks 30 goals or so, plays more forward, looks formidable as a centre-half forward that can float into the ruck, does his value go down then? I'm not sure. So I just think that it would prolong his career. Like I'm personally surprised. I just think he would play. His workload would drop. He would still be at the club he wants to be at. He would still be playing with the teammates that he loves. In a team that's about to hopefully try and make a move up the ladder. Yeah, I just think, it's just interesting, like interesting timing. Will this ruin the fabric of the team if Marshall stays? Will it create? I don't think so. I mean, we don't know. I don't even know. Was there photos of Rowe at the best and fairest? I'm trying to think if he went, but no, I don't think so. I think every player knows that this is the name of the game. This is the beast that we're all in. And if it doesn't get done, as he said in his interview, he's a professional. He's contracted by St Kilda Football Club. And as long as he's contracted by the St Kilda Football Club, he will do what's right for the club. So right now he is contracted. If a deal can get done to go to Geelong, I'm sure then, depending on what Geelong can offer us, we would look at it. But if it doesn't get done, then I suppose he just switches his mindset back to, okay, back to work at St Kilda, So I can't imagine that teammates would be fuming at him that this news would break. They would have known what he was thinking anyway. We can't forget, obviously, I think Tom de Koning will be very good, but I think it would be even more formidable if he partnered it with Rowan Marshall. We've seen it with Paddy Ryder and Rowan, how good they were. I think that's the way football's going. I mentioned it in my video with the ruck rules potentially changing, obviously 5 on the bench. So I think a lot more clubs are going to be looking at playing 2 rucks, and we would probably have the 2 best, most mobile around the ground rucks in the competition, which I think is already, that's a big factor in games, to have one in the middle, one forward, one resting back if they need to, and around the ground just dominating the air. It's hopefully it still works out for us, but maybe we've got a little bit of work to do. Max Holmes, Max Holmes would be nice, but I dare say he is not on the move. But we might have a list. St Kilda might have a list and say, these are the 5 players. We want 1 or 2 of them. If not, thank you very much. We're going to keep Rowan Marshall. So we can't be bullied in this situation, and there's nothing really that will stop us from keeping him if we don't get what we want. Yeah, that's not happening. McAvoy left a lot younger before his prime, I would have thought. I have to check, but it feels like we've gotten a fair bit out of Rowe. And I think that's the thing is we've had probably 4 or 5 really high-level years from him. Can he continue that as a number 1? I'm not sure. But can he do it with a partner in crime that's hitting his prime right now? Can take the workload off him and do a bit more of the bulldozing around the ground while Rowe can just take marks and kick goals? That to me seems like a pretty good balance. I agree. Personally, I wouldn't unless it was someone decent in return. STK, Dempsey, and Holmes are the only players we'd actually want. But which of those 3, hypothetically, would be most likely to leave? SDK? Even Dempsey? Like, Dempsey's a great talent, but does he win games for Geelong? I don't know. I think Holmes is just untouchable. I don't think he can go anywhere. SDK, maybe. Depends on if his brother gets in his ear. That would be another layer to this whole situation is, okay, Rowan Marshall's requested a trade, but, this weekend, Tom and SDK are hanging out on the peninsula or something, and they're having a chat and puts it in his ear. And if SDK says, okay, I want to go, maybe then something can happen. I would love him. I think that just completes us in the back half. O'Sullivan, he's very good as well. Yep, Enright's going to, I dare say, will be pulling a lot more strings behind the scenes next season. Don't be devastated, Susie, to be honest. Like I said, I think if we don't get what we demand, then it's a no deal and we walk away and we keep him. So it's not a foregone conclusion that obviously most requested, trades, they get done, but he's got 2 years on his deal. Geelong don't really have a great draft hand. I don't think we want just picks. So, they probably just want to offer picks to start. I can imagine that they would offer maybe their first or maybe futures or something, but Geelong's futures aren't going to be worth much anyway, because you'd imagine they'd be pretty high up the ladder for the next couple of years. He does. Like essentially for Geelong, having Rowan Marshall, they think is going to take them to the flag. They think that obviously the ruck situation on grand final day was catastrophic for them. They think that he is a part that could take them all the way. And that's huge. That says to St Kilda, wow, you really value him. You really think he's worth a lot. So St Kilda's not going to be stupid in that situation and think, yeah, we'll just take pick 20 or we'll take 20 in a future or something like that. There's so much more that we could ask for because of how valuable he at least is perceived to be from the Geelong camp. But he is also valuable to us. So it's going to be a bit of a battle, I think. It's going to be this one's going to be the one that takes the longest and might get done or not get done on deadline day. I can imagine this would be one of those. This is not going to be 2 days in and Geelong walks away. I mean, unless we demand too much and they just move. But yeah, I'm still pretty bullish that nothing happens. Malcolm says, hopefully Marshall stays. I like him a lot. Always around the young players when they do something great. All time will tell. Maybe a few more players will move on too. Getting a defender in return could give us more flexibility, putting potentially Taru Silvani and Leah forward. Absolutely. Yeah, I mentioned that in my video earlier today. Then imagine having a STK, Wilkie, Silvani, and Aaliyah, and then essentially Hammer and Taru can kind of float forward and back when needed. That's incredible aerial power there and flexibility in the big man department, which we haven't had in a long time. But Rowe gives us that in the forward line anyway. So you kind of maybe if you step back, you go, okay, if we get Sam de Koning, maybe we're still kind of where we're at. It just means there's more pressure on Tom de Koning there's going to be pressure on him anyway because of what he's on. But, having that dual ruck would have been handy. But then you've got Dodson. Maybe he gets more games next season because of it. I personally, if we lose Rowe, we'll lose him for a good pick or a good pick and player situation. And I think then we'll walk away and be happy and disappointed at the same time. But I don't think it's the end of the world. It's disappointing. You don't ever want players like Rowe to leave, but I don't think if he leaves, that's the reason why we won't make finals next season, And that's it's easy to be sentimental at times and look at Rowe and how good he's been, but yeah, it's going to be hard for him to match his best. Even at Geelong, I don't think they would expect him to be, a top 5 ruck in the competition, but I think they would definitely see him as a huge upgrade on Rhys Stanley. So yeah, it just depends on what they think. Rowe is a goal kicker. Let the club make the right choice. A complex multiple trade and draft picks. Marshall was originally drafted as a tall forward. Could Marshall's manager have requested this trade for more bargaining power? Potentially. Dodson is our future. Absolutely. His debut was really, his first quarter in particular was impressive. So we're in a good spot there with TDK, Dodson, Isaac Keeler as well. Our tall man stocks in that department are pretty strong at the moment, which hasn't been the case for a while. Saints just asked for too much, and then we keep him, or we get a Lawson Humphries type player and pick 17, then we can work with that to help find that spot to replace Naz in the half-back line. And look, if we give up pick 7 for Flanders, maybe then we work our way back into the first round with this pick, whatever Geelong could offer us, but it would still be with a player. I can't stress that enough. I don't think we're losing him without getting a ready-made player back that could play in our team round 1 next season. Yeah, his body's... being a physical ruck in the last 5-6 years is not helped, and we can't forget the ruck rules, and it's more potentially going to be running and jumping, and I think that's where TDK excels, and a lot of rucks, maybe Rowe potentially wouldn't excel, so maybe the club sees something there. Potentially Ash, potentially Jevon, he'll be around that mark, absolutely. What round do you stop parading around TDK with losing Marshall if he's not performing at close to that 1.7. I mean, that's just assumptions, mate. That's just trying to predict something that hasn't yet happened. So there's no point speculating what round or what this, what that. It doesn't matter. Like, we've got him. He's a saint, and we wish him all the best and hope he plays well. I would get involved with pick 7, Geelong first round to get Humphreys and Flanders plus future first pick. Do you think we need forwards? It's not a lot of firepower. If it is for King, I mean, King, Sharman, Owens, Liam, Ryan, Jack Higgins, Max Hall floats down there. Philippo will float down there. I'm probably missing. Tyroo could play forward. I think our forward stocks are a lot better than they've been in years, to be honest. But it does stem on King playing a full season. But that's why I think having Marshall or someone like that down there just to release the pressure would be really important. Liam Henry as well, if he can get a full season. Yeah, that's the biggest if in the history of football right now. If he plays a full year, anything's possible at the footy club. If he doesn't, and we lose Marshall and we don't have anyone to really successfully chop out that area, then it hurts. Luke says, now is the time to cash in on Rowe. Only 1 year left on his deal after next season. After next season, yeah. So really, it's 2 years left on his deal. He's a contracted player. He's a best 23 player. And, a team that's playing in a grand final want him. We're not going to just let them get stronger for nothing. We're going to be making them pay up. Worst case scenario, we spend extra to get TDK in and get a first. Best case, we get the best ruck in the league for years to come. Yeah, 100%. He's only 25. Like, people forget. Let's not jump the gun yet. Marshall and Steele for SDK or Holmes. I mean, I can't imagine Geelong would be interested in someone like Jack Steele. I just don't see, if they need. I mean, their midfield's not super strong, but Bailey Smith, Holmes, Sean Manor, Jack Steele. I don't know. I can't imagine. I'd hate to see Steele in it. I'd hate to see any, favorite Saint in a Saints jumper. It's just in a Geelong jumper. Look, I would have said that 5 years ago, Dan. I would have said that 5 years ago, but I have the utmost faith at the moment in what the club's doing. And I think there's full transparency across the board as to what we're doing. There's been a lot of reports about Rowe never knew about TDK up until 2 months ago. As if. Like, we all knew the TDK was coming a year ago. Like, let's face it. Rowe would have known that. Jack Steele knows that his midfield minutes are dropping. We're letting him look around. That doesn't mean that we're forcing him out. It just means if you've got 2 contracted players, have a look around, see what other clubs are willing to pay. If it's nothing, then they stay. But you don't know until you ask. You don't know until you look around. And I think that's what we're doing with Steely. With Rowe, he wants to go. So it's a bit different. Steele wants to stay. We're just kind of playing the field. Rowe wants to go, but he wants to go to a club that might not be willing to pay up exactly what we would be looking to get in return. Wilkie's sticking around, mate. He's got a nice pay rise coming. He's going to be captain. We don't have to worry about Cal. It's all sorted. I mean, Marshall's he's not 10 times better, Martin. He's really not. Take the emotion out of it. He's older. He's played more football. So maybe there's more of a sample size there for you to judge him on. But TDK's best is better. It would be better than Rowe's best. And particularly right now that, there's 4 or 5 years separating them and one's coming into his prime, one's wrapping up his prime. I do not think that you can say that he's 10 times better. That's a far reach for me. Yeah. We forget that. We've kind of moved on from it being, it was like Seb Ross, Steele, Zachy Jones, these sort of guys. And now, yeah, we're past that. It's almost been like we haven't really noticed it until now that like the more interviews these guys do, the more events they go to, it's really not the other guys. You're not going to hear much from them anymore. It's going to be the new faces. And that is They are the faces of the club. TDK, Naz, Windy, Filippo, King. That's the face. That's the era. This is where we're moving into now. It's not Steele and Marshall. As much as we want to keep them, it's not. They're not the selling point of the club. They used to be, but not now. Geelong's draft hand. Let me have a look. I don't know how accurate this page is, but we'll double check. So Geelong have got 17, 37, 55, and 73. So, like, to be honest, I don't think they'll offer us 17. Maybe they will, but even if they did, I still think we would want a player. I just think we're going to play hardball. We're going to really push them. I don't think, like someone on Twitter suggested, it would be 17 and like 17 and 37, maybe they're first and second. I don't know. I don't think they would do that. I mean, they're still going to try and get Curnow, supposedly. I don't think that's going to happen, but then they'd have nothing for him. They have no players to give away if we're demanding players. So it's going to test them when they've got, 17, 37, 55, 73. I can't imagine if that's going to be, and 17's, it's shit because it's going to be blown out into the 20s with all the academies and all the bids. So spot on there from Wiz. Geelong's first pick won't be until 23. Yeah. So we're not going to accept that. That's why players is important. I don't think Saints care too much about the draft picks this year. I think we're really in on getting talent in, getting ready-made players in. And a pick in the 20s, what's that going to do you? Right now we have pick 7 and it jumps to 43. So look, we do want to build out between 7 and 43 because we need picks for Liam Ryan. We need picks for Leclerc. We want Sam Flanders, Cam McKenzie. There's other players there that we might be, and then there might be, some player from left field that pops out of nowhere and we want to get them, and we have no picks in that middle zone. So I can see how maybe losing Rowe would fill that gap. Like 17 and 37, you go 7, 17, 37. Obviously they move out 4 or 5 spots, but you get my point. We would then have 17, 7, 17, 37, 43 and a more. So you could literally lose, you could use 17 maybe, or whatever that might be for Flanders, maybe 37 for Aaliyah or Ryan. You could use even 43 for Ryan. Those 3 picks alone could net us 2 players, maybe all 3. So you lose Marshall and it means you can get 2 other players in. That's sort of the game we're in at the moment. So it's it just depends on what St Kilda want to do. Maybe, I mean, that's the thing. Just because he wants to go to Geelong doesn't mean he ends up at Geelong. He could end up like Essendon. Essendon are losing Draper. They might come in last minute and put an offer to him. Maybe they want him. Would Marshall prefer to go to Geelong, who's a flag contender? Absolutely. But if the deal works better for us, maybe we talk to them. So that's the positive side, is that I guess the news is out. Other clubs might be looking at it saying, hey, can we sway him? Can we talk to him? But usually when a player nominates Geelong, look at Bailey Smith. No one went near him because they knew Geelong's getting him. So maybe this is a similar case. Yeah, I agree. This is the 1 year I'm totally fine if we don't really look at the draft. And I think we get Fincher anyway, who looks good. So if they still want Curnow, they'll likely be trading 17 and a future first to Carlton so they can build the draft hand for Walker. Good call. If we play hardball and Rowe ends up staying for no agreed arrangements, will he become resentful of the club and not put in 100%? I personally don't think so. I think he's better than that. I think most players can just switch back on into competitive mode, and I mean, that would be a test of our culture to see if we can really keep a player that wanted to leave. But we don't know really what the word-for-word discussions would have been. Like, I would rather, like, I'm happy to stay, but if there's a chance I can get to Geelong, I'd like to get to Geelong, So it just depends on, he's not disillusioned or anything. I just think that would be his preference. But if it doesn't happen, I don't think it's the end of the world. We can see our list management. Trust them not to accept whatever they try and get away with. We have strategists or strategies. Yeah, I agree. Happy for you to tell me why. Jordan, I don't know if you're the Carlton guy or the Collingwood guy, but I'm tipping you're the Carlton guy. Just something about the way you type. If Rowe doesn't put any plays in the twos, I mean, we've got a VFL team now. That's true. But yeah, we're not keeping Rowe to play him in the twos. That would backfire hugely. Future first. But is their future first going to be good? Like, what's the point of getting Geelong's future first if they're going to be a top 4 team for the next couple of years? Future first and Max Holmes. Yeah, I don't think Max Holmes is going anywhere, to be honest, guys. But it's interesting nonetheless. So I'm not going to keep you too long. It is a Friday night after all. Lastly, Tom, Jake, would you rather TDK or Marshall? I liked how Marshall could roam forward. I do, but I'm just bullish. I'm just very intrigued by the new rule changes and everything coming out of the AFL. And I think that's going to suit a player like TDK with the attributes that he has more so than someone like a Marshall. That's why I think we would rather TDK in the ruck, because he can run and jump and explode out of the contest and win his own clearance. And Marshall can pinch hit, but also play forward. I think there's a good balance there. I would just love to see it before Rowe decides to check out. I would just love to see them play together, just a couple of games and see what happens. I just think it would work. But yeah, we'll just see what Geelong come to the table with. Again, it could be Sam de Koning. I don't think it'll be Shannon Neal. But you know what? If we had a Neal there with King and Sharman, I'd be stoked. But Neal's been good for them. I just can't imagine they'd want to lose him with Jeremy Cameron at the back end of his career and no real other tall forwards coming through. I just don't see how that would be a thing. Yeah, I mean, I agree. We're doing something right if everyone's pissed off. Otherwise, if we weren't doing anything right, no one would be talking about us. No one would be talking hate about us. It's just the way it is. So I'd rather the hate than not, because it means we're shaking a tree and doing some damage, which is nice. Yeah. I think I'll wrap it up there, guys. It's been half an hour, so I appreciate all of you tuning in. Nearly 1,000 of you again. I've got my Jack Silvani video out, my Tom de Koning video, and obviously now we're talking about Rowan Marshall. Hopefully we get Liam Ryan, we get Sam Flanders to nominate us. That would be big. And Leka Lear over the line as well in the trade period, which opens next Monday the 6th, and it goes until the 15th. So fingers crossed we can get that all over the line and not lose anyone. But hopefully you appreciate Friday night stream. If you enjoy these, put in the comments. Let me know if you like doing the trade talks live. I do them pre-recorded mainly, but I do enjoy getting the comments out and chatting to you guys. So appreciate all your support. Shameless plug. We've got the merch, the St Kilda Mafia merch released. I mean, it doesn't make sense to show it in a Rowan Marshall video, but that's the merch. It's pretty cool. If you want it, there's a link on Instagram and all that stuff. So thanks again, guys. Hope you have a ripper weekend. I'll be back next week to talk about all the news. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and go Saints.